I now wish to call on Denise Mimochi to the microphone, what a beautiful name, to open the exhibition this evening. Thank you, Denise.
Thank you, Marlene, very much for the invitation to speak here tonight. It's a great pleasure. I also want to congratulate all the finalists that are here and who contributed the many wonderful works that we see around here tonight. You know, it's always a thrill for me when you're looking at artworks on a computer screen as thumbnails to actually walk into a room and see them all come to life. So it's a really fantastic exhibition. Congratulations to you all. And congratulations to the artists, and thank you to the artists for continuing to contribute to our local culture. Very important thing. I also must, while we're on the thank yous, I must acknowledge the work of Marlene, who established this prize in 2004, over 10 years ago, which seems remarkable. And her enlightened vision and her generous benefaction has been really instrumental in allowing all these, artistic practices to flourish. It's such an important thing. I think we're probably all aware that perhaps these days, more than ever, it's harder for artists to really persevere and work through their practice. Those sort of support networks, financial or otherwise, might not be as strong anymore. So it's really important to have a forum such as this, which does encourage that, to bring the artists together and for us to view their work and establish their practices is really important. So Marlene, thank you. And I think, is about an expression of the distinctions of place and our connections with place as well. When we consider some of the most evocative paintings in Australian culture and Australian art history, for me anyway, it is different forms of landscape painting that often come to mind. But this prize is also about artists working from this very rich platform of tradition within the present. So it's about landscape as an enduring and contemporary genre and ways of pushing that genre forward and exploring and expressing something new. And I think, the works here speak of that very strongly. And so within that sort of context, I was thinking about landscape in all its different types of expression, why it continues to hold such important relevance today, and why it continues to remain a site of artistic experimentation. It's a very complex question, and I am going to resist the 3-hour lecture in response, so I'll just keep my remarks very short. But I think also looking at these works in here today, we're reminded that the very notion of landscape in art is itself a construct. It's not just a representation of nature, but it's a conceptual imaging of it. It's an image that is formed by ideas about dreams and desires, and is often forged to project a sense of connection to place and investigate a sense of essence. So the term landscape, also in Western art, is connected but also very much removed from the Indigenous notion of country. I think landscape of country. Smith and her exuberant harbour paintings. When I think of Sofala, I think of Drysdale's bare and spooky empty ochre streets. Baraura, in my mind, is Margaret Preston's painting of her house and garden there. And further afield, in terms of Sydney geographically, the spectacular traditions of Papunya Tula preface my thinking of Western Desert, in the same way that the Kimberley for me is connected to, amongst others, the work of Grover Thomas's enigmatic and arresting symbolic forms. And recently, I think many of us would have seen John Marrigill's fantastically dazzling works evoking the radiant spiritual images of place. And that, for me, really does again signal the landscapes of Maningrida. So these are all just random.
And I think it's really interesting, especially in an Australian context, that art prizes can be the subject of much scrutiny. Often, if you look at social media, there are these accusations of nepotism and corruption and chatter in artistic circles. There's often criticisms of taste, trends, and the tastemakers themselves, like me. And these comments sometimes feature on Instagram, social media, Facebook, newspaper articles. But what I think is really important to note is that art prizes can also be life-changing. So, artists are humans with the same appetitive and basic needs as everyone else. Despite our vital contribution to culture, most artists are poor. They are never able to make a basic income from their professional practice. That sounds really dire, but it's actually the truth. With this in mind, I'd like to acknowledge Marlene Antico again for her generous patronage. Marlene's care and empathy and her desire to support underrepresented artists or unrepresented artists is really remarkable, because these artists are often the most vulnerable.